The birds had just started singing. The dew was still fresh on the windows. And inside a small house surrounded by forest, two little children were playing in the living room, giggling, talking, and then they were gone. No one heard a scream, no one saw them leave. But the door was open, and the boots were left outside. 6-year-old Lily was bright, curious, and loved to draw little animals in her notebook. Her younger brother Jack, just 4, barely spoke outside the house. But he adored trucks, dinosaurs, and followed his big sister like a shadow. On May 1st, 2025, just one day before the nightmare began, the children were kept home from school. Lily had a cough, nothing serious. Their mother thought it was best to let them rest. They played indoors, watched cartoons, read a book. That night, their mother made grilled cheese. They went to bed early. Everything was normal. But May 2nd wasn't normal. That morning, sometime between 9:30 and 10 a.m., their mother remembers hearing them play in the front room. Then silence. She walked in. No kids. The sliding door was unlocked, wide open. Outside, sitting in the grass, were Lily and Jack's tiny boots. They never wore shoes in the house. They never wandered off on their own. And yet, this wasn't a prank or a game. They were gone. Their mother called their names. She checked the driveway, the woods, the crawl space. She ran. She called 911 at exactly 10:03 a.m. Within the hour, RCMP officers arrived. A search was launched. The house was locked down. Roads were closed. Volunteers came from across the county. ATVs, drones, search dogs, divers. Everyone looked. Every shed, every ditch, every tree line. But nothing. No torn clothing, no dropped toys, no small footprints in the damp forest soil. It was like they had vanished into thin air. And then came the first clue. But it wasn't from that morning. It was from the day before. Because while Lily and Jack were supposedly at home on May 1st, someone found security footage of them in a completely different town. The RCMP were stuck. There was no sign of Lily and Jack on Gairloch Road, or in the woods, or even in the ponds and creeks surrounding the house. No tire tracks, no broken branches, no signs of a struggle. It was as if time had skipped forward and erased them. Then, 2 days into the search, a flicker of movement appeared, not in the forest, but on a security camera in a town nearly 30 kilometers away. There they were, clear as day, Lily and Jack, holding hands, walking into a grocery store in New Glasgow. It was May 1st, the day before they vanished. They were with a family member shopping, calm, unharmed. Lily wore a yellow raincoat. Jack trailed just behind, dragging a stuffed dinosaur by the arm. It was the last confirmed sighting of them alive. But here's the thing. There's no record of them returning home after that. No dashcam caught their car on the return drive. No neighbour saw them outside. No Ring camera recorded them walking back in. It's as if they disappeared the moment they left that store. Police questioned the family. Everyone said the same thing. Yes, the kids were home that night. Yes, they went to bed. Yes, they were playing the next morning. But what if they weren't? What if something happened between the store and the house? Something no one wants to admit. One investigator would later describe it as a 24-hour hole in time. A stretch of missing hours that no one could fully account for. And that's when the questions began. Not just about the search, but about the people closest to the children. Because if the last place they were seen was outside their home, then the only people who could have seen them leave were already inside. They say when a child goes missing in a small town, the whole town loses its breath. That morning, word of Lily and Jack's disappearance spread fast, faster than anyone expected. The RCMP had barely finished taping off the property when neighbours began to arrive. Some brought maps, others brought flashlights. One woman walked 2 kilometres with nothing but a pair of binoculars and a sandwich in her coat pocket. She told reporters, "I wasn't going to stay home while 2 babies were out there in the woods." By noon, a full-scale search had been launched, the kind you usually only see in movies. Helicopters circled low, rattling windows. Drones swept tree lines. Dogs from Halifax were brought in. Even underwater recovery teams were called to scan the nearby brooks and culverts. The command post was set up at the fire station. There were whiteboards covered in circles, grids, initials. Volunteers were assigned zones. Some walked in pairs, others went alone. And everyone repeated the same question to each other. How far can a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old walk, barefoot, in less than an hour? That question never got a clear answer. What did become clear, disturbingly clear, was how little evidence the land offered back. No footprints, no small handprints on muddy fence posts, no broken branches or torn bits of clothing. The dogs picked up nothing strong enough to follow. Divers in the pond found only silt and silence. At night, the woods turned black and bone-chilling. But the search didn't stop. People brought lanterns. Some even brought baby toys, hoping the sound would lure the kids out of hiding. There was this unspoken belief. If they were out there, they had to be scared, cold, hungry, alive. And then, 5 days in, something changed. The RCMP scaled the search back. They said it was standard protocol. Resources had to be optimized. But to the townspeople, it felt like giving up. You could hear it in the tone of their voices, in the weight of their steps as they packed up their gear. Something shifted after that. Some volunteers kept coming, but others quietly faded away. The community didn't just feel helpless. It felt haunted. One of the search coordinators, a man who had led rescue efforts for 30 years, told local press, "I've seen people go missing, but I've never seen the woods keep this quiet." And yet, behind the silence, something else began to rise. Doubt. Whispers crept into conversations at the diner, at gas stations, behind the counters of small shops. People began to ask the questions no one wanted to ask. Not out loud, not at first. What if the kids weren't in the woods at all? What if they never had been? Because if you search for 5 days across miles of land and find nothing, not even a sock, then eventually you have to stop asking where they are and start asking how they left. In the first week, the story of Lilly and Jack felt like a tragedy. By the second week, it started to feel like something else. Online forums lit up with speculation. Reddit threads, Facebook groups, true crime YouTube channels. Strangers began dissecting the family's interviews, comparing statements, picking apart body language like they were forensic clues. But in a case with no trail, no footprints, no suspects, sometimes the mind starts looking inward. It wasn't long before attention turned to someone very close to the children. Daniel Martel, their stepfather. At first, it was just whispers. He'd been the one who noticed the door was open. He was in the house the morning they vanished. And yet, in every interview, something felt off. He was calm. Too calm, some said. His voice never cracked. He never cried on camera. One woman in a Nova Scotia Facebook group wrote, "He talks like someone explaining a recipe, not like a man who just lost 2 kids." That's when the rumors started growing legs. People began asking questions that didn't have easy answers. Where exactly was Daniel that morning? Had the police checked his phone? Why wasn't he breaking down in public like the mother was? To be clear, there's no public record of abuse, no criminal history, no official suspicion announced. But that didn't matter in the court of public opinion, not when the mystery was this cold. The mother, whose name we're withholding for privacy, became a lightning rod of her own. At one point, she left the search zone completely for several days. That set off another wave of outrage. Some claimed she was overwhelmed. Others said she was hiding something. One post accused her of protecting someone. Another simply read, "She knows more than she's saying." It didn't help that the couple had split shortly after the disappearance, or that family members stopped appearing together at public events. Even small details, like who held the missing person's flyers or who spoke to reporters, were twisted into fuel for suspicion. The RCMP kept their distance from the noise. In their official statements, they refused to name any suspects or persons of interest. They continued to call it a missing persons case, not a criminal investigation, not yet. But as days turned into weeks, the pressure only built. There were reports, unconfirmed, that some family members had refused polygraph tests, that police had seized electronics, that cell tower data was being pulled from surrounding roads. Behind closed doors, things were unraveling. But to the public, there was only stillness, no arrests, no updates. Just a wall of silence, broken occasionally by a press conference or another rumor. And then, like smoke curling through a closed window, a new theory began to take hold. What if the kids weren't lost? What if they were taken? Not by a stranger, not by force, but by someone they knew, someone they trusted, someone who didn't need to break in because they were already inside. If that were true, then the question changes from where did they go to why? And worse, who helped them disappear? By now, the public was split into camps. Some still believed Lilly and Jack had wandered off, maybe chasing a bird or exploring a path they'd seen before. They pointed to their age, their curiosity, the open door. Maybe they got lost. Maybe nature had hidden them too well. But that theory was growing harder to accept. After 2 full weeks of searching, over 600 volunteers, 40 square kilometers scoured, divers in the ponds, drones overhead, scent dogs on the trail, nothing had been found. Not a toy, not a shoelace, not even a snapped twig someone could swear was new. You don't just wander into the woods and disappear without leaving something behind. Then came the second theory. Someone took them. This idea ignited the online communities. A stranger lurking in the trees, a car parked just out of sight, a silent abduction during the 10-minute window when the mother was in the kitchen. It was terrifying and oddly comforting. It gave the chaos a shape, but it also raised difficult questions. There were no reports of unknown vehicles, no tyre marks, no neighbours saw anything unusual, and Gairloch Road isn't exactly a high-traffic area. It's isolated, rural. For a kidnapper to find that house, they'd have to know it existed. And if they knew it existed, how? That's where the third theory emerged. Not wandering, not a stranger, but someone inside. It was the quietest theory at first, until it wasn't. And once it took root, it was hard to ignore. What if the children didn't disappear that morning? What if they were already gone before the mother walked into the living room? There was that surveillance footage from May 1st, the last time they were seen in public. After that, everything is hearsay, no images, no third-party confirmations. Only the word of those inside the house. A 24-hour hole in the timeline. What happened in that gap? Why hasn't any camera anywhere captured them since? Even worse, why did the community stop talking about it? Because that's what happened next. The posts slowed down. The press conferences became sparse. The volunteers stopped returning calls. And the story, once a wildfire, started flickering into embers. Some say people got tired. Some say they got scared. But a few believe something else entirely, that someone close to the case knows the truth and is waiting for it to fade. The silence wasn't just the sound of grief. It was the sound of protection, the kind that doesn't break, not even when the rest of the world is screaming for answers. As the investigation stretched into its second month, something unexpected happened. The focus shifted from where to if. If Lilly and Jack were even still alive. It's a question no parent should have to consider, and yet it hung in the air, unspoken in some circles, whispered in others. But then came a flicker of hope. A woman in New Brunswick claimed she saw 2 children matching their description at a gas station, travelling with an older man and a woman. She said the girl was holding a yellow coat. The boy had a stuffed dinosaur, the same one Jack was seen with in the grocery store footage. Police followed up, checked surveillance, conducted interviews, but nothing came of it. No license plate, no clear video, just a feeling. Then came another call, this time from northern Maine. A man believed he saw the same pair at a rest stop cafe. The kids looked nervous. The adult woman with them didn't let them speak. He didn't think anything of it until he saw the missing poster 2 days later. Again, no proof, no confirmation, but no denial either. And that's the thing about cases like this. When there are no bodies, no evidence, no final answer, hope doesn't die. It just mutates. You start imagining. Maybe they were taken across the border. Maybe they were sold, or hidden, or passed off as someone else's children. Maybe they're being raised under new names, in a new town, not even knowing they're missing. It's terrifying, but it's not impossible. And that possibility that they're out there somewhere waiting to be found is what drives the people who still haven't stopped looking. The reward fund climbed to $150,000. A new round of flyers went out across multiple provinces. RCMP asked the public to review home security and dashcam footage from April 28th to May 2nd, not just on Gairloch Road, but across rural Nova Scotia. Someone somewhere had to have seen something, but even hope comes at a price. Because the longer they stay missing, the more people wonder if they are alive. Then who took them? And who's keeping them hidden? Not for money, not for ransom, just gone. Some theorists believe this is what makes the case so dangerous. That it's not about a random act of violence or a one-time tragedy. It's something deeper, more organized, more deliberate. If that's true, then someone had a plan, a way out, a place to go, and a reason. It would mean this wasn't a disappearance. It was an erasure. One carefully crafted and still working. Because to this day, despite police appeals, media campaigns, search parties, and online sleuths, not a single confirmed trace of Lilly or Jack Sullivan has ever surfaced. Not once, not anywhere. If Lilly and Jack's story feels familiar, it's because it is. It echoes through other unsolved cases, other names, other faces, each with its own strange silence, each with its own vanishing point. In 2011, 6-year-old Timothy Pitson was picked up from school in Illinois by his mother. They were seen together on security footage at a zoo, at a resort. 3 days later, his mother was found dead in a hotel room, an apparent suicide. And Timothy? Gone. No trace, no confirmed sightings, no answers. In 2007, Madeleine McCann disappeared from a vacation apartment in Portugal while her parents dined at a restaurant nearby. A global manhunt followed, theories multiplied, evidence came and went. But 17 years later, there is still no conclusion, no body, no confirmed fate. In Washington state, 5-year-old Oakley Carlson was last seen in 2021, but no one reported her missing for months. By the time authorities began investigating, she had already faded from public life. Her parents were arrested, but Oakley's whereabouts remain unknown. Different places, different circumstances, but the same unbearable void. Children vanishing from spaces that should have been safe. From homes, from hotel rooms, from their own beds. Not in crowded malls, not in alleyways, but in familiar places with people they trusted. That's what makes these stories so hard to digest. It's not just the absence, it's the betrayal. The idea that someone who was supposed to protect them might have let them go, might have helped them disappear. These are the stories that don't end. Not really. They just become part of the background noise of true crime. A file on a shelf, a name on a flyer, a face that fades a little each year. Until one day, someone sees something, or someone speaks. That's the pattern. That's the hope. Because as long as there's no body, no definitive proof, there's always a chance. And that's the knife edge families walk forever, the space between grief and belief. In the case of Lilly and Jack Sullivan, the parallels are hard to ignore. 2 young children, a secure home, a missing timeline, no evidence, and a family that's been quiet. Perhaps too quiet. But there's still one part of their story that hasn't been told, and it may be the most important one of all. Because if someone did erase them from the map, they may not be far, and the people responsible may be hiding in plain sight. This story doesn't end with answers. It ends with questions. Unfinished, open, heavy. Because 2 children, Lilly and Jack Sullivan, left behind more than just an empty room. They left behind a fracture in a family, a hole in a community, a shadow on a province that can't quite name what's missing, but still feels it. And as the months pass, it gets easier for people to look away, to say it's unsolvable, that someone would have talked by now. That silence must mean nothing happened. But what if it doesn't? What if someone knows exactly what happened and chose silence? What if this story isn't over because someone doesn't want it to be? Someone who lied, or watched, or helped? And what if that person is waiting for the rest of us to forget? If you've watched this far, you already know this isn't just another missing persons case. This is a story with a gap in the timeline, with contradictions, with too many loose ends and not enough eyes asking the right questions. So here's what you can do. Check your dashcam footage if you were anywhere near Gairloch Road, Nova Scotia, between April 28th and May 2nd, 2025. Rewatch security footage. Review old texts, calls, or messages if you know someone connected to the family. Look at the photos again. Really look. Ask yourself, did anything ever feel strange about that week? A trip that didn't make sense? A voice that suddenly went quiet? And if you know anything, even something you think is too small to matter. Call Crime Stoppers. Call the RCMP in Pictou County. Stay anonymous. Just say what you saw, what you heard, what you felt in your gut. Because this case doesn't need another theory. It needs a crack, a slip, a single piece of truth. That's how these stories break open. Not in the spotlight, but in the quiet. In the moment someone chooses courage over silence. Lilly Sullivan is 6 years old. Jack Sullivan is 4. They are missing, but they may not be gone. And if they are still out there, somewhere, they're waiting for someone to speak. Maybe that someone is you.